Hey guys, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Advisory Board podcast. I've got with me a special guest and a good friend of mine, Chris Valdes from Horizon Consulting Partners. Chris, say hi to everybody.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
Let me tell you why I've got Chris on here, guys. Chris is, I met him a couple of years ago, actually almost to this date, 2 years ago. And Chris is, he's a franchise consultant, franchise broker, but I'll be frank with you, he's one of the best I've ever met. And I'm going to brag on him just for a second, because I want you to know why I brought him on today and why you should be paying attention to Chris. Chris is, he came from the farm industry, medical device sales, built a distributorship. He did that, 15 years or so, Chris?
Yeah.
And that led into entrepreneurship, buying a franchise. So Chris has been a franchise owner. He still is a franchisee, and he got into franchise consulting because he saw this is a path to help people gain ownership and change their lives, build wealth, etc. Get out of the corporate rat race. And he's been doing this a few years now, but his results are incredible, and he's got the right idea, the right process, he's using the right tools. The year to date, a little more than 40 individuals he's helped get into franchises, and almost double that in the number of territories he's personally helped people get into. If you know anything about franchise consultants, those are ridiculous numbers. And so I thought it'd be good to bring Chris on and let him talk a little bit about what are best practices, what are ways that if you're trying to sell franchises, whether you're a broker or you're a franchisor, you should be considering. Before I go on, Chris, tell us a little bit more about you and Horizon Consulting Partners, and we'll jump into the topic.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for the introduction. Horizon Consulting Partners. We're franchise consultants over here. I like using the word consultants or advisors. I don't like using the word broker because I think brokers really broker deals. I think we kind of help guide people to understanding what the best fit for them is. I think what makes Horizon Consulting Partners, I came up with the name, first of all, because I wanted people to have a new path. And I think a new horizon kind of made sense. And, you might find the word horizon in other places, but what makes us a little bit unique, number one, I am a franchise owner. There's a lot of consultants out there, and majority of them, not all of them, majority of them have never ran a small business, and let alone majority of them have never owned a franchise and having a track record of success with it. So I think that's something that makes us a little bit different. Our other consultants, Alex and Danielle, are also have had entrepreneurial experiences, so they can also walk you through owning a business because they've also done it themselves. And I think that's also something that makes us unique. People that we've brought on our team thus far have had business ownership. One thing that makes Horizon unique, in my opinion, is I stick with our candidates throughout the life of the relationship. As long as they're willing to talk to us and continue speaking to us, even after the fact, I'll be with them, with all of our candidates for as long, for years. And it's proven to be successful because I'm building a relationship long term, and that relationship leads to new conversations. Maybe it's not the right time to do a business. I just talked to a gentleman yesterday who I've been speaking to for at least 2.5 years, and it may be 2.5 more years before he does something. But when the right time is, he'll come back to us, come back to me, hopefully. And at the same time, even if it's not for him, building relationships with them, and hopefully that creates a referral process with us. And so I think that's kind of what makes Horizon different. We don't coach people. We actually talk from experience running businesses, and me being a franchise owner, I can talk about the day-to-day of my franchise. While I have limited experience in all the franchise and all the categories of businesses out there, at least I can talk about what it's like running my employees. How does a franchisor support me in my endeavor of building my personal goals, and how does that tie into the corporation's goals and some of those fears and anxieties that people may have?
That's perfect. No, I appreciate it. It's pretty unique. And the results are absolutely unique. So what I want to talk about today with you, Chris, is I want to pick your brain and have you kind of be the coach, or at least share some insights of, you've only been doing this for a couple, like 3 years. Is that right? 4 years? How long have you been a consultant?
Just over 3 years. I mean, right at the 3-year mark, to be honest.
Yeah, so 3 years in and putting up massive numbers, about 4x what I think the average is for a consultant, a good consultant, right? So definitely listen up, and let's see what we can learn today about process from you. There are a couple of stages of the selling cycle, and I hate to say selling, but let's say the franchise consulting cycle. But you're trying to help people find a match, right? The first part is lead follow-up, right? Because you've got to be able to engage, process, and have meaningful meaningful conversations with a high volume of people to be able to produce the types of results that you do. And also moving people through the funnel. So once you have that initial screening discussion or intro discussion, you find out this person's a viable candidate. Then there's that whole section of nurturing them through the point where they close a deal. And then you've already talked about this a little bit, but there's the post franchise award process that I think it's neglected a lot. So I kind of want to break it down to those three areas. And let's talk about the first one, because I know you're a beast at this, Chris. Let's talk about lead follow-up. Like, what are some of the things that you have found? Because in 3 years, you've iterated fast to dial this thing in. What are some of the best practices you've found that help you really succeed when you're engaging leads and trying to convert the most you can?
Yeah, so I think when you're looking at a lead, most consultants probably give up on the lead if they don't pick up, if they, they're busy, life is happening to them. This morning, actually, I had a lead that family member had passed away, and I found out this morning before jumping on this call that a personal friend got ran over by a vehicle. I mean, it's a really difficult time period. And so what a lot of consultants may say, just back off. Obviously, I would back off. Gave them my condolences and everything. It's a difficult situation to overcome. It's the holiday, so I think you need to be highly aware of the candidate's personal life situation. Put yourself in their shoes versus, let's just get on the call then. Hey, I know this will help distract you. So I just say, let's just talk after the holidays. And I always book the next call with every candidate. So regardless of the candidate, I teach my team, whether it's 3 to even 5 months, to continuously call that lead. It may be a bad timing for them. They may, depending on where the lead source may come, maybe the person who screened them, they didn't screen them very well. So they really don't even know why you're even calling them. So they think it's another, spam call. It could be a telemarketer. So I think there's different ways on connecting with a candidate. So not to give all our secrets out, Dave, but I think you need to that's probably not approach the lead. First of all, don't give up on them simply because they don't pick up the phone the first 3 to 6 times you call them, or the first 2 or 3 weeks. I think we're client tether, and this is where I give a big credit to Dave, his team, and client tether. I was using a prior CRM when I got into this business, and the way I came from the medical device industry and how I approach physicians, healthcare providers, and took notes, I think I've taken that approach into this world. And I think that's what's kind of helped me. But the story is a lot deeper than just that. But I had a CRM that wasn't just not giving me all the tools that I personally needed to be as successful as I potentially could. So I tried another CRM, to not name them, but in a moment of crisis, because I was trying to get towards the end of the year, develop a new system. Someone gave me Dave's contact information, and from there I contacted Dave, and him and his team really took me from what I was kind of like, I was very stressed, and learning a new CRM system for whether it's Client Tether, Salesforce, Zoho, they all suck to learn brand new, because you're so used to driving the same car, you know where the buttons are at, and now you get brand new buttons. I would say that in the beginning, it was a little bumpy for me, but as I started adapting to it, what I've learned from Client Tether is that it customized my ability to develop new processes and programs. Now, while I'm sure Client Tether would wish that I would do a lot of this on my own, figuring out programs, they've been so cordial of having somebody always help me out, because there's so much to the system that I still don't know. I just want to focus on what I'm good at, right? So the processes that I've implemented, I have such a solid drip campaign, and I'm constantly developing new drip campaigns. From the time that I started with him up to now, I've now have probably close to 9 different drip campaigns that I'm working on, and I've consolidated them into 1 or 2 big ones. But the content that I put out, I'm constantly revisiting, and some I've kept it for a while, period of time, to see if it's being nurtured, if the audience, if the lead sources or individuals are coming back. And what I noticed is I've had to change my tune. I've had to change some of the approaches. And as I help out individuals to find a new fit in their life, it's also helped out to have, them as validators as to who I am. So there is no one way to approach any lead or to get somebody. I think what most people need to realize, that when you have a lead, first of all, don't give up. That's key number one. Whether it's 3 weeks is not enough. You don't know what's going on in someone's life. You don't know who screened them.
Mhm.
Even if they said they were interested in franchising, they were interested in some franchise you're unaware of, and you don't know what their motives are. Um, but then continue following up with them. If it's a if it's a referral from another friend, that's a different approach than it is from a lead that you may purchase or acquire. But I
Mhm.
think having a variety of lead sources is highly important. After you get in contact with that lead, I think this is where many consultants probably don't do a great job, is what the time frame of the contact that you have with the lead to the next time you schedule them. And then
Mhm.
this goes into the process of um, how you work with a candidate. So that's when I think what I've learned through my prior work experience and working in corporate America and seeing processes and sales that I was in, when I was working with big companies like Cintas, when I used to be an employee from there in college, to these medical device companies and pharmaceutical. The process is to approach customers is something that I've been able to bring in. And
Mhm.
now I've been able to adapt. Now, fortunately for me, my style is different than many consultants, but what I do that's a little bit different is I highly connect with individuals in a unique way that it's really just my personality. It's not anyone else's, but I've been able to teach my team how to use their personality with my systems to help make them successful. And it's true, because I have a new consultant who, as we speak today at Horizon Consulting Partners, we have 3 individuals at Discovery Day as I'm taking this video right now. 2 individuals have worked with me and one with our newest coach, Alex. And not in less than 2 months, he has somebody in a Discovery Day. So that kind of gives you, and he had not done that. And when was working with another consultant, and great guy. But I taught him a different method, and the method that I've taught him, it's been obviously working for our team. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a kind of a little broad right there, Dave, but I don't know if that was a good question or a good answer to
Yeah, it's
question.
great. Let me pull some things out. I want to highlight a couple of things you said, because I think you've nailed several things that everybody needs to understand. The first part is, when somebody fills out a form, right? They take the effort they've done some research. Google talks about the 0 moment of truth, where the consumer has already done some research, and you can assume now when they fill out your form, they already are aware of like what's going on. Now, franchise leads, sometimes you get people that accidentally through Facebook or whatever fall into this loop. But a lot of people, they've said, all right, I'm interested in franchising. Let me learn a little more. And so then they fill out a form. They take the effort to put their personal information and contact information into a digital form. That
Mhm.
person, generally speaking, I hear a lot of people say, well, they're all bad leads. Nobody wants to talk. They're just junk. The reality is the follow-up process is junk, and your qualification process is usually junk, because a lot of these people they're viably interested, maybe not qualified yet. And so the fact that what you're saying, and I want to reiterate it, is you can't give up on a lead. There's
Mhm.
a ton of data out there that says 6 to 8 phone calls is about about the 6th phone call you get to an 80% contact rate. You can get a lot higher if you shorten the window of time within which the lead is created and the time you call, but we can talk about that more later. But
Yeah.
there's this process of, if you're persistent, you're gonna have more and more qualification calls. And these people who took the time to fill out a form are actually interested in learning more about franchising. They're just busy and they don't know your phone number. And there are all these reasons now why it's getting harder and harder to get in touch with people on the phone. Google and Apple have turned on these. Like probably once a week, Google saying, "Hey, why don't you turn on this anti-robo dialer spam caller feature?" And I don't, because it'll block everybody who isn't in my contacts already. And
Mhm.
so I don't want that. But a lot of people have it turned on. Probably about the continent have that turned on. So you have to work around that process and engage through different approaches. You've got to be mixing up the media. There's got to be email and text and phone calls, and phone calls and text and phone calls and text and emails and phone. Like, there's got to be a cadence, like you're saying, a drip. That's the other part, is automate yourself.
Mhm.
Automate whatever that process is. You got to automate yourself and
Well,
make sure there's a system replicating it. Go ahead, Chris. What were you going to
I
say?
think also one of the reasons I've had the success that I'm having is because I don't give up on leads. I mean, I'm talking to a guy right now who, when I first started, he was like not interested. And
Mhm.
through lead drips, and as Dave, as you already know, I'm highly active on social media.
Mhm.
I've learned how to do the right type of hashtags. I've learned how to do the right I mean, I'm everywhere. You can find me
Uh-huh.
everywhere. You can find me on Google. Our company has a Google My Business page as well.
Mhm.
So I got reviews everywhere. And but what happens is when you have a funnel of people and you just continue working. The reason I had the success I had in my first year was just because the only the only option I had was to succeed. The biggest reason people fail in anything they do is because, it's just fear and anxiety, or they doubt themselves. And for me, the only choice I had, I quit the industry that I was in, and I said, this is it. This is my income, right? I'm going to build it. And I was passionate about it, but I didn't come to the franchise industry just simply because I just want to be a franchise consultant. Actually, I didn't want to be a franchise consultant. I always wanted to own my own business. So over the course of 8 years, for those who don't know my story, I spent 8 years looking into franchises. 64 different companies I called and did validations with them. That's a lot as a young guy. At one point, I got really, really sick. I had colon cancer. And throughout that process of being a medical device rep and going through my journey, I wanted always to have success because my mom was a single mom. At one point, she, she was on government assistance, and we didn't have all the riches that many families do, right? She struggled, and we just made ends meet. We were happy, but I wanted to have more. So that motivation always led me to work harder. So I'm a natural, I'm a go-getter naturally. And I learned it from my parents. We just go after it. Now my mom owns her home. It's completely paid for. I mean, I've seen it through my own family. I got a sibling who's a dentist, the one who's in graphic designing, one's in real estate, one's about to finish college. We're all, college graduates, but through the hustle. And I always wanted to run my own business, right? And my
Mhm.
dad ran businesses, but never taught me business, right? He's out for years. I think the day he dies, he'll probably regret never doing something with his son. That's a different topic. But but I always want like, hey, dad, teach me business. And he just didn't teach me. He was like, go to college, be a doctor. And I was like, great. Not everyone wants to go to college to be a doctor.
Yeah.
People want to be whatever they want to be, a great teacher, a musician, or an architect, or whatever. And but I know what he was doing. He wanted me to have stability. So I started looking at franchise companies, guys. So 64 companies in, I doubted everybody. My mom had a client. He's the former CEO of Yum Brands.
Oh,
And
wow.
Mike, if you ever hear this, Mr. Mike Kern, he had an integral part in my life when I was driving in my car as a sales rep in Miami, Florida. And he told me to read the book E-Myth. And
Mhm.
he moved to Kentucky. I think he's back in Greenville. He's the area developer for Rapid Fire Pizza and Grill. I'm not going to name the consultant who was more than persistent and wondering if I should get into franchising. And one day he said, Chris, he called me, you ready to do a franchise? Just follow up. And I was so impressed with his follow up. I'm like, God, I do that all the time. But I finally asked him, what is it that you do? How do you do it? And that's when he told me, hey, talk to this and this. And I started learning. I was like, I bet you I could do so well at this, because I just didn't believe. The thing is, the majority of consultants who call me never ran a business. Ask if you're
Yeah.
watching this video. Well, if you're a consultant, it doesn't matter. But if a candidate was watching this video, most, it's just difficult I would tell the candidate, ask that coach, have they ever ran a business, talk about their resume, learn a little bit more about them, and see if the advice they're giving you, if it's accurate.
Mhm.
They're probably very knowledgeable about it. But this goes back to the processes. My conviction has helped me to create a process and systems to be able to get into this,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's what's been able to nurture these leads and know that everyone's background is a little bit different. My personal life experiences, I make my personal life at first I was very closed and embarrassed about things that happened in my life, like getting sick and things like that. Now I'm so open about it. It was just an event that
Mhm.
happened. And because of that life experience, I can now share that with other individuals. And now
Mhm.
I connect with people who are way older than I am. But
Yeah.
I've had the same level of success, and I've become financially independent. And I'm looking to build processes and systems to help people out. So my consulting comes from caring about individuals, whether they have bad credit, they have millions of dollars, they just lost their job, or they just want to find a new path. you need systems and processes like Client Tether to help you out to be able to do it. And Client Tether has helped me out tremendously. And this is not because Dave is on here. If Dave wasn't on here, I'd still tell you the same. I mean, support system. I was just on Client Tether today, which is late to this podcast because I was having issues. They came to the rescue to help me out. That was a little bit longer. It's a little bit of annoyance to have an issue, but the fact that they come and help me, that's priceless. The price that you pay to have support is immense. I didn't get that with every other CRM system. So they've helped me to give me ideas. They've helped me with my ideas, and they help me to implement my ideas. So follow up is key number one.
Mhm.
And then how you communicate with franchisors is another thing as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. And thanks. I mean, certainly appreciate the feedback and being real. I think you've exemplified something there, and you've talked about it. But like being authentic about the experience. Like, yeah, I wish I could say that. Yeah, we never have tech issues, but that would be that nobody. I mean, I'm having Zoom issues all the time, right? Like it's technology. It's a constantly changing environment. But I think that's key, and we can learn from your experience working with us as a consultant, working with candidates. Glitches happen. People die.
It's how you guys take it from here and help solve the problem. And usually it's a pretty quick marriage of resolving the issue for the most part, you know.
Yeah.
That's the key thing is support.
Well, and I want to let's see how that applies into this world. You're talking about the same thing though as a consultant, right? Somebody has a personal crisis, something's not right in their life. You don't just drop the ball and say, well, you know, that's probably going nowhere. I've seen this before, right? Like you're authentic, you care, you show empathy, and then you stay engaged. You schedule the next thing. You stay on top of that lead. I really appreciate that you're sharing those best practices, because that's applicable whether you're a franchise consultant, a franchisor trying to sell franchises, or just anybody. And I agree with the same thing. Like personally, I think that's something I do well, but I think it's important in the process when you're trying to help someone find the right fit. If they can't trust you, they're never gonna work with you. And they trust you because you're authentic with them. So these are a couple of things that I'm pulling out that I really appreciate about what you're sharing, Chris. Is you were closed at first and you started opening up and just being real with people, sharing your experiences, sharing your failures. Those sorts of things create trust and then help people feel like you can be their guide to help them find the right solution. Let's shift gears though, because you mentioned something that I want to talk about, which is the process after. So we've talked about nurturing, staying in touch with, scheduling the next event. These are all just critical. I call the mechanics of sales, right? Best practices. Keep the momentum moving. If you're not continuing, or if you're not advancing the sale, you're just continuing the sale. And they're going to stay in these loops and they'll eventually lose interest. It's like dating, right? Like you're dating some pretty girl or some guy, if you're a gal, but or whatever, I guess
it's all the systems. And I call it advising. So, and yes, I think anything is sales today, anything we talk about, but for me, it's truly coaching. It's not sales. And I don't look at what I do as sales. I tell candidates, I'm not here to sell you. I'm here. I find out what their motivations and I hold them accountable to their own personal motivations. And I think that's something that that I feel comfortable doing, is holding people accountable to what they're doing. I think a good coach is somebody who holds somebody accountable in a way that's caring, but also it's, when to nudge. And I have several videos from candidates who've been able to say that, where it's like I could play one right now. Actually, they can say or it's a good nudge. It's not like I'm pushing them to make a decision. I don't ever want to make I'm not here to choose for the candidate. Whether they do franchising or if they don't, my objective is they leave with a good impression of something they never knew about. The same way the fears that I had, right? The same exact feelings. I thought some of these companies were a bunch of like, just take my money. Why am I paying a royalty? What's a franchise fee? I'm restricted. And some companies are that way, but there's a lot that are not. And there is restrictions to a certain extent because you're buying a proven plan, but let's get informed. Let's get educated and go from there.
Yeah, I love it. Let's shift gears to the tail end of the process a little bit. So two questions. One, I think one of the things that I've been most impressed with as I've gotten to know you is the type of relationship you develop with franchisors. And so I want to just ask you a little bit about, as a consultant, a lot of consultants don't do it. They're like, I don't care. I just want to help people find franchises. But you invest effort into getting to know the franchisors, sharing, having personal discussions with them, sharing information. Like every day, pretty much I see you having some conversation with some franchisor, and I love that. Now,
Mhm.
how have you seen that relationship that you as a consultant have built with the franchisor help you as you've been developing this consultancy?
It's a great way that I've built a personal relationship. First of all, right after this call, you have a client that I know is one of your client, Line Painting, and I
Uh-huh.
built a personal relationship with Nick Lopez, who's become not just a mentor, somebody that I admire, but I
Mhm.
consider him a friend.
Yeah.
And when I met him, it was just at a conference. But I've always built relationships with people, and um, and if someone's starts to try to do the mimic, trying to build those relationships with Zors, great. I'm super happy. You should do more of that. I think
Mhm.
it's different in the way that I do it, and that's where I think you won't mimic me, even if
Mhm.
you. But
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in getting to know these individuals, and I tell I told several people, I won't name some of the biggest companies out there. I don't care about your brands. It's just a brand. I care
Mhm.
about people in your brands. The employees are as you as an executive, are your people happy working for you, or are they just pushing another brand?
Mhm.
I told, just because you're an executive of the company, I've told several of them, it's not that I have lack of respect for you. I have
Mhm.
a lot of respect for you, but I want to get to know who you are as a man or as a woman, as a leader, and not just try to come to me with the next shiny new thing. Hey, it's a new iPhone, it's a new AirPods. I'm using Apple. It's a new version, it's a new feature, and then wave, hey, if we do this, this is what's in it for you as the advisor. So now I should run to you. Size to me of the organization does not matter. Big
Mhm.
or small or medium. It's a right fit for the candidate.
Mhm.
How I, as a consultant advisor, get compensated for my time is between me and the organizations that I speak with. But if I'm going to send a candidate over to a franchisor, constant communication and getting to know that individual to me is so important, because I build a personal relationship for them to take care of the referral, the individual that I'm going to continue coaching and continue speaking with after the fact. This
Mhm.
morning, not going to name the individual's name, an individual I spoke with for about 9 months, got into a franchise, the same company that I'm with. Now he's a colleague. He's part of the family. We're franchisees. His success and my success are both to our successes. And I'm constantly finding out about him.
Mhm.
And what are you doing? How's your business doing? His first month, this individual did around 7 grand in a matter of 2 weeks. Second
That's
month, we did about first full month in business, 17,000. Second full month, and this is this morning. And don't, if he's ever watches this, hopefully I'm doing this right. I think it's like 26 grand.
yeah.
And now we're going on a slow month of having roughly, hitting around 20, but the goal is to be closer to around 100,000. The fact that you're a brand new business starting
Uh-huh.
in from peak season ending and going to a slow period, and how the franchisor is helping him out. The reason this candidate, I have the relationship with that individual,
Mhm.
you also have the relationship with the organization. But when you know the leader of the company or the leaders, and
Mhm.
you tie that story, when you're talking about that story to an individual, it's not about the next concept and how about the revenue and the total investment, the gross profit margin. It's hey, this is where you can start, and this is how the company supports you in that journey. What is your goals, and how does that mimic to the corporation's goals? So having a relationship with those Zors really gives you an ability to find out the right type of fits for the individuals you're speaking with, and helping those individuals painting and telling the story the correct way,
Yeah.
so that you can tell it to the candidate and in the way that you should be telling them. And
Yeah.
if you don't, I talked to the CEO of a new company recently, and I said, "Can you tell me what I should say? Could I record you? Is it okay for me to record you on a Zoom call?" We did it, and not to name the individual, but he's the owner of the company. And
Uh-huh.
this is how I would like for you to tell a candidate, talk about our company to an individual. I was like, wow, I needed his story so that I could take it back to the consultant and then use a client tether and systems and what I've created to be able to help make sure that they can have a good understanding and find out if it's a good fit or if they want to have communication.
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah.
that advisors are just a bridge to get the candidate from here to the company, but we
Mhm.
guide them on that bridge as we're walking, and it's shaky. They don't know. They may be missing
Mhm.
something, and we're here to put, here's a hand. Come over here and walk on my hand a little bit. We got you. I'm holding your hand. Don't be scared.
Mhm.
And by having the right partnerships, we're able to get that candidate from here to cross the bridge over here and maybe come off with a better impression, or maybe a customer of that client one day, or maybe a customer of that company one day, maybe even if they're not a franchisee.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great metaphor. And I want to draw out, because we're right at time, Chris. So I want to draw out a couple of things that I heard you say that I think are really important. And a big part of that is the relationship between consultants and franchisors. Because a lot of consultants don't invest time into that, and a lot of brands, especially, they feel like they don't have the bandwidth, especially emerging and establishing brands, 30, 50 units and below. Often they don't. They're not all like Nick Lopez. I'll just say that. I love that guy, but he cares. He's passionate, but he also wants individuals to understand the vision, the mission, the goals, the growth. I mean, a lot of them they'll pump you full of stats like, hey, this is, these are our metrics. Here's our item 19 details. That's great. And you have to have that so you can do benchmarking and comparative analyses, and then know that you're guiding your candidates through the right path. But where I see franchisors that are really successful with brokers is they build personal relationships with the consultants. Right. They work with them individually. They make sure there's a relationship of trust, because you have invested your time and money to get a candidate to the point where they're ready to probably make a purchase decision. And it's emotional, right? You've got an emotional tie to these people. You want them and their kids after them to have success and wealth and growth, et cetera. And so if the consultant doesn't have the same vested interest in that person, and you don't feel like you can trust them to hold their hand through that process, you're never going to send a lead over to them, a candidate to consider, and you're never going to push them into a discovery day, right? So I feel like those are some great points that you've made, directly and indirectly, that franchisors need to pay attention to, right? They need to make that investment as well and make those connections, build that trust and that rapport. And that creates a very trusting ecosystem where you can send candidates to them and feel confident they're the right fit and they're going to be taken care of post acquisition of the franchise, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot. Look, franchise consulting, there's not enough in this podcast that I can talk. I can talk about everything that I do, and I've changed and I'm constantly evolving. But stay in contact with that lead for the life. And that's what's given me the 2x, 3x, a 4x, and it's going to continue going on there.
Yeah.
It builds referral systems. You build partnerships with the people that you work with. People don't care how much you know until that key phrase, until they know how much you care about them. Whether they have bad credit, they have a lot of money, not right now, someone's parent, child passed away, or just whatever. They're just fear. They're looking at the news, whatever that is. Have the systems and processes that you can manage them like a client tether, and have them help you out with systems and processes. In addition to freaking fracking with the franchisors, getting to know who they are, what makes them different. Maybe they're in the same industry, right? Maybe it's the same thing, HVAC, painting, plumbing. What makes them different? Find out the owner's story, and that's what makes them different. So one story that comes to mind is 1-800 Plumber and Air. Talked to Mark Collins, I believe is his last name. I didn't know he was a 5th generation plumber. And he told me his story at the conference in Hollywood. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. Well, there's some companies that are significantly larger than him. I got to know a little bit about him, enough to bring to say, wow, now I have a better connection with him. And lastly, if you're looking for the next, if you get don't get frustrated with candidates when they're no-show you, when they don't pick up the phone. Be constantly, a professional. And one thing that I like candidates know, say, hey, my time is just as valuable as yours. I'd love to respect your time. I show up on time. But if you can't show up on time to a call because a life event happened, I understand. Just give me the courtesy and reschedule, or let me know, so that don't ghost me or don't have me chasing you. I don't have the time. I'm here to help guide you, to help, book on my calendar, or just let me know a time that we can reconnect and let's continue our journey of learning. Just be always with them. And trust me, it's rewarding. And I just look at myself as a professional life coach that helps people to change their life, either getting into business or not. I build personal relationships, and that's what I am. I'm a personal relationship builder.
Yeah. And I think that fuels trust, right? That helps the whole process to work, the whole ecosystem. Chris, you've been awesome. I sure appreciate our friendship. I appreciate our business relationship, but I just appreciate you taking the time to share some insights and knowledge and experience. This has been great. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. And thank you for the support at Client Tether. Thank you for having me on the podcast. And I want to wish you, Dave, and everyone watching this, Happy holidays, happy new year to all, and let's make it a great 2023. And let's shed some light to this world. Sometimes the news just makes things dreary. So let's be a little bit brighter as we continue on.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Take care.